All right. Well, first of all, thank you very much to all of you for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to be sharing this round table with all of you. We know that we are celebrating this event regarding the role of the International Day of Women and Girls on Science. And I think it's a beautiful moment just to remind all of us, first of all, how wonderful is the place that we have by being working with science, and second as well, the responsibility that we have towards the new generation, young girls, but as well other women in other parts of the planet that they don't have, I will call it the luxury or the privilege that we have of being working with science and with the freedom that currently kind of we can consider ourselves. So this event hosted by the Spanish Embassy at the Society of Researchers in Southern Africa, the Spanish researchers in Southern Africa. And the event is going to be hosted moderated by Soraya. And for the past 3 years, she has narrowed her specialization and interest on African politics, human rights, and social affairs. Currently, she is the director of Africa Mundi, a digital Spanish media on the African continent. Has previously worked in others such as El Español and published El País. Well, thank you very much, Soraya, for being moderating this event. And I must thank you as well, our sponsors, the Fundación Ramón Areces, and as well the support from the Fundación Women for Africa. So, well, just say that, Soraya, the floor is yours. And thank you very much again for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Fabiola, for being, it's a pleasure for having me as a moderator on this talk in such an important day, no? Thank you also, Alvaro. Thank you, all the organization, just counting on me. However, I'm going to present today's talk. On the first place, we have Dr. Alba Gómez-Arias. She's a researcher at the University of the Free State in South Africa. She's specialized in geology and environmental management of mineral resources, and she's also committee member of the Society of Spanish Researchers in Southern Africa. On the other place, we have Dr. Georgina Pujol-Busquets. She's assistant professor at the Open University of Catalonia. She's also postdoctoral at Tim and Marilyn Noakes and on WIT's Rural Public Health and Health Transitions Research Unit at the University of Witwatersrand. On the third place, we have Rhonda L. Bowen. She's a communication guide with over 30 years of experience. She has worked with people from over 70 countries in business, engineering, science, and technology. Also, we have Temitope Ojuolape Fadipe. She is Chief Research Officer and Head of Molecular Biology Laboratory at the Federal Institute of Industrial Research, Ojuolape. She was a visiting professor at the Centro Nacional de Biotecnología in Spain. And last but not least, we have Vino Pillay. Vino Pillay is the South African National Ambassador and Executive Director of World Speech Day, South Africa. She also manages the global lead for World Speech Day Women and is member of the WSD Global Advisory Board. For me, it's a pleasure to talk to such an interesting panel, and I look forward to hear all of your answers. So I think we can start with the first question. Today, in the occasion of the International Day on Women and Girls in Science, do you think and see science as a tool and a mechanism that can help or has helped to empower you and women in general? Like, we can start with Alba, and then we can follow on if any of you want to participate. But Alba, please.
Thank you very much, Soraya. I think that definitely science has helped to empower women. More specifically, it was medical science. In fact, what was the main let's say, the cornerstone of woman empowerment. When we were finally able to decide when to have a child, and we were able to pursue a career and put on hold a childbirth thanks to the pill. I mean, it seems like any other pill, any other drug that it was discovered over the time, but the pill was really empowering by the fact that it was able to allow us to pursue a career, to do what we want in the time that we want. I do have a child myself, and I decided to have her once I finished my degree, and I already started my master, but I decided to have it at that moment because my partner was very capable and supportive, and I knew with his help I could, keep studying and being a mom, and that's something that we couldn't even think 50 years ago or more. So I think there is many things that science has done for the society as a whole, and to empower women, it was one of those things. There is many more things that has helped us, but I wanted to highlight that one as one important scientific advancement that produced a social advancement.
Yeah, I think for sure it's an important advance in society overall. Someone else wants to say something, maybe Georgina?
Yes, hi everyone. Alba, I totally agree with you. And I think as well, when I think about empowering related to science, I think it's been empowering, but it's more maybe access to science or the knowledge to science. So to have the opportunity to actually choose science as a field, to work on, to advance in your career, to become a researcher, for instance, I found it very empowering because I feel like it's been such a privilege to have the opportunity to have like freedom of choice and be able to choose that path, because that's not the case for so many women and girls. So yeah, definitely. And in relation to science itself, apart from reproductive health, it is an empowering field because it makes you, I feel, think in a more open-minded way, which it might be the same in other fields, but I think in science, because we do research in, we look for evidence, and there's also like, these theories and stuff and different frameworks that we base our opinions on. It really makes you be really open-minded and just be aware of things around you. And I guess that have this type of eager to keep learning and keep like just expanding your knowledge in a sense.
Yeah, totally true. Like I totally understand your position. I think like science is gradually taking place and like coping with public spaces, no? And have a big role in all of this. Maybe someone else wants to answer to this one. If not, we can go to the second one.
I would like to add a little bit that I agree with Alba and Georgina. And certainly I remember that when I wanted to pursue a career in science, when we were in 300 level in the university, I decided to actually be a scientist and pursue a research career. I was probably the only one in a class of 80-something students. And it wasn't a very, very popular decision, such that, I mean, when I eventually graduated my PhD, I remember one of my colleagues in university then saying, oh, talk about you and this genetics of a thing. So you stuck with it all the way. So I kind of feel like I was opportune. Science gave me a voice. The fact that I had the opportunity to choose and then stay in that field was something that was very empowering. And then the fact that I also see around me right now, in Nigeria is not a very easy country to live in as a woman scientist. I looked up some statistics before this roundtable. I discovered that right now we have 8 female vice chancellors in Nigerian universities. I work in a research institution, and we usually have limited research
funding as compared to universities in Nigeria, I discovered that, we had a fellow of the Academy of Science from a research institution despite our limited funding. So I feel empowered, and I also see around me that, yes, we are not yet there, but things are changing. We have role models that we can look up to here. And I'm sure that's probably the same thing, across maybe the other African countries and the world at large. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. It's a slow path or pace, but I think that we're arriving to it now in Africa and Europe and America and all around the world. I would like to go forward to the next question that I think it's like really vinculated to the first one, because now that you all have your achievements and around your professional careers, do you see yourself as references or leaders for other females to follow? Maybe in this case, Pilo, you can start the round of questions, of answers.
So I choose not to focus on whether I project myself as a leader, but rather I see myself as an instrument. I'm able to do what I do because of the men that have crossed paths with at different stages in my life. Like my professor who instilled in me the importance of striving towards high standards with respect to work. My boss who urged me to bring my children to work rather than quitting my job because of challenges. My long-standing family friend from New Zealand who encouraged me to start a digital marketing agency for nonprofits in South Africa. And of course, Simon Gibson, who is the founder of World Speech Day, who trusted me with a blank slate by way of World Speech Day South Africa, and to be creative with it, which is the reason why I'm doing all that I'm doing now. Of course, WSD Women, for instance, would not have grown in the way that it has had it not been for the many women across the globe, like women that have come from Barbados, Mexico, Germany, Morocco, South Africa, Ghana, India, Singapore, to name just some of them. WSD Women was born as a result of COVID in 2020, and women in that time took the time to support other women by sharing their stories, their expertise, and their wisdom. That said, the most significant source of inspiration for me are the university students that participate in WSD campaigns. As an example, we had university students stand in as advocates for GBV survivors by producing digital literacy videos to address the issue of online GBV during COVID. And the young girl from whose mom was sheltered under the Potter's House program at the Swanee Leadership Foundation for GBV. This young girl couldn't attend school for approximately a year, but she was so hungry for the opportunity to learn and to be a part of our WSD book club, the SDG book club, that she just, lapped up every opportunity she got. And as a result, amongst many others that are featured on WSD, she presented a powerful speech on gender equality during the 16 days of activism. So this is where I get my inspiration from. And this is why I remain motivated to do what I do, despite having challenges such as very limited or no funding available at times. So I think of myself as serving as an instrument, connecting people and ideas to create great opportunities for the many unexpected voices in unexpected places.
That's great. I think that being an instrument is also very valuable, and even getting inspiration on forwards. Like I think we need to don't stop learning about new things from many places, no institutional, educational, I don't know, public spaces. I think it's really, really important. Maybe Rhonda, you want to say something about this?
Yes. I'm the one person whose best connection to Africa is Vino. Thank you again for the invitation. I don't consider myself a leader because the thing that leaders need most is a support system. And I work as a communication guide. And to speak to the topic today about women in science, I spent about 15 years with a global chemical company helping people learn to negotiate. These were scientists, many of them research scientists, who had worked very hard to help discover and develop new products for the company to sell. And when that happened, that had to be then approved by each individual country where the product was to be sold. This is not a negotiation that takes place about which kind of a car do you want to buy or what's the delivery time or something like that. This is, will this product be sold in this country or not? And if the answer is no, the answer is no forever. So it's a very special kind of negotiation. And fortunately, for all of us in the world, this company believes very, very much in the power of women. And many of the 750 people that I've worked with there over the years have been women in very high leadership positions from all over the world, which is absolutely great. People from Chile, from China, from all kinds of places that I've had the chance to work with. All of these women extremely well-versed in their scientific background, but also working very hard to make the world a better place. And therefore, I really appreciate the chance to be here today and to say that all of the women who are working in science are not only giving a wonderful service to the world, but helping those who need other kinds of help. For example, in the medical profession, as you mentioned before. And I'm just very happy that I'm the one providing the insights and the support based on my broad experience to be able to help those women, to help other women, and to help the world.
For sure. I feel like inspired for what you're saying. I think your role is very important also, like communications role is vital, like to make understand people what is progress making on in engineering, in science, in many aspects. And that said, I want to go on to the next question. Like, I think nowadays women students gradually have more access to grades and educational spaces. I have recently checked data that United Nations published some time ago, in which they said that there are more African women scientists in Africa than in Europe, and even Latin American scientists are the top one. This is also interesting, no, to understand what is the position of African women in science. And that said, I wanted to ask you how important is that we tackle educational challenges to progress at professional and academic levels. Maybe Alba, we can go back with you and start the questions, the answers.
I think it's very important. So we have to start this inspiration and this movement since the very beginning. Already from primary school, secondary school, it is very important to increase the visibility of women in science, for instance. So I think we all know the example of Marie Curie, but there is many other examples of great scientists that has contributed, and not only in the science field, in many other fields. If you see your textbooks, it's mostly fill up with achievements of men because they were the ones allowed, let's say, to achieve things. And how many women or female writers were, using their husband's name to sign authorship. So this is a long and sad story that is changing little by little. And I think we need to give visibility so the children can get inspired and decided to pursue a scientific career, knowing that there is other scientists, female scientists, who have done it and they did well. It's I can put here a quick example. My mom, she wanted to be a truck driver all her life, all her childhood. That's all she wanted to do. She wanted to drive a truck. And everybody told her, no, this is the 50s. Nobody drives trucks. No woman drives trucks. You can't be a truck driver because women don't drive truck. So she just thought she was having a silly dream and she never pursued the dream because everybody told her, women don't drive truck. Nobody told her, you could be the first one in your town or you could be the first one in your country to do it. you know, and in fact, she only got his driver's license when she was in the 30s. So that is, and I'm not saying that it's a sad story or that my mom's life was not awesome anyway, but it's an example of how we are in boxes and we struggle to think out of the box because we are imposed somehow. Yeah.
I think your truck's mom story is wonderful, like to understand that biased like educational levels in that case, and how we can understand it now, no, with science and women and children. Maybe Temitope, you want to say something about this?
Yes, I wanted to follow up with Alba. So, one thing that I believe has been like, how do you say, it's still constant, like an hindrance to actually level the care of the home. The women in Africa are seen as the homemaker. And as such, you have to make some certain sacrifices for family. Some of our institutions don't even factor that into it. I have the case of a colleague right now who got married. Less than a year, she got pregnant. She had a child. She was on a master's program. She had to pause the program, of course, to take care of the baby. When she got her act together to continue school, COVID happened. During COVID, she got pregnant, had twins. And I mean, this is costing her 3 years of promotion. She's not been able to advance to the next stage of her career. She's not very happy right now. There's no real support they're coming from the workplace to acknowledge the fact that there's something going on. And there should be an allowance for women that are even making these efforts to progress in their career. Same in school curriculums. I don't think they factor in the fact that a woman could get pregnant. The peculiarities of women are just different. Those things are not factored in. Then to now even had it to top up, funding access, it's limited. Okay, yes, we're already in the career now. To continue to build, to be relevant in the career, I believe that there's an inequality in funding access for women versus men. So all these things, I know they are contributing to reducing the rate of advancement. So, and these are things I feel we need to do something about, like decisively about. There are so many organizations that are trying to bridge the gap, like OWST. So, but we need to do more. We need to do more because women have a lot to offer the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Temitope. Yeah, for sure, we have to do more, and this type of talks and spaces are really important, no, to make us stand and have a voice over our inequalities, in this case in science. Someone else wants to take the word, maybe Georgina, Vino.
Yes, can I go? I completely agree with Temitope, and I actually was thinking about what you said as well, like the fact that even at school, like access to school for some girls is not the same than for boys. And at least I work in the public health field, and we see so many single moms, adolescent pregnancies, girls that just cannot continue with school. And this is a big problem, at least in rural South Africa, where I mostly work. And not only that, but because of some like culture, traditions, just way of doing things, some of the girls are eventually become like the caregivers of some of the people at home. So therefore, that's their role. And there's no opportunity or chance for them to actually move forward with their education, not even finish matric, so finish high school or get to university at any sort of point, especially if 1 every 3 girls might get pregnant. And then we have this big problem when there's so many single moms. So it's not usually pregnancies that they were expecting or they were, trying to. So this is a big problem. And I think it's definitely one big challenge in education in certain specific settings. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally true. Vino, you wanted to say something?
Sure. So Soraya, I wonder if I can offer a different perspective, perhaps not necessarily in terms of education, but employment. And I wonder if I could use myself as an example here. So I'm fifth generation Indian South African, and I'm here because my forefathers left India in 1860, from that point onward, to seek better opportunities here in South Africa. And they endured significant hardship working on the sugarcane fields. But, you know, they stayed here in the hope of better economic circumstances for the generations to come. So I therefore belong to a generation who, unlike my mother, her grandmother, and her great-grandmother, had the freedom and opportunity to further my studies and pursue a career if I so wished. And I was blessed to be surrounded by men, such as my father, who said that he wouldn't have minded if his daughters chose to remain unmarried. I have brothers who are supportive of all of my choices. A husband would have preferred that I continued on my career path, but respected my choice to be a stay-at-home mother, and a son who would even take the day off school to join his dad to help me launch, like WSD, for instance. But for many, so I was really blessed in that way. But I found that, like for many in my generation here in South Africa, if you have the means, the opportunity is there. Having said that, the only and very significant barrier that I encountered was the inability to choose being a primary caregiver and source of influence over my children in their formative years while continuing on my career path. So while we are fortunate to enlist childcare very affordably in South Africa, we don't have parental leave systems in place like countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Estonia. And as a result, the gap in my employment history left me having to get creative in how I was going to make up for lost time. So in short, in order to bridge that gap, I decided to seek ways to impact on the for-profit sector. And that's when I went in to offer digital marketing services to nonprofits. And then I decided to, join WSD and empower women and youth. And now I do this through driving entrepreneurship through the International Women's Federation of Commerce and Industry. But, I just want to say that it was a challenge, and it should not have been that way, because when I finished my master's degree, I thought I was going to be able to walk into a job that would help me climb, where it would become easy for me to climb the corporate ladder. But it was a case of, okay, I want to have children, and that's our right to be able to have children and enjoy that process. But it didn't always work that way. So I know it's not about education, but just considering employment and growing in your career path, I think is also something that needs to be addressed.
For sure, something to be addressed about and to be conscious. In your case, Rhonda, you've worked in communication around different topics. And have you experienced difficulties to work as a woman around science compared to other topics such as engineering or business?
I'm fortunate in what I do, because when people say, why did you choose what I call best professionals, business, engineering, science, and technology? I chose to work with those people because they're my exact opposites. I know nothing about business, engineering, science, and technology, except what I have learned by working with people who are experts in those fields. And I have been so fortunate to have learned so much by doing that. For me, the important thing about whether that is women or men, or the important thing about supporting those people, whoever they are and whatever field they're working in, is that people in these fields, and especially the scientists I worked with in the chemical company, the thing I think that really pushes people forward in science is curiosity and the willingness to experiment and the willingness to try new things, because science doesn't make advances either for an individual person or for a whole field like medicine if the people aren't willing to go out and to try new things and to do things in a different way, and hopefully then in a better way, to improve themselves and therefore to improve their lives, their professions, their companies, all of the people they're working with. So for me, the reason I work with these people is because I bring the outside perspective. And as much as today we're talking about women in science, I am so pleased that we're also talking about men. I am so pleased that we're also talking about other aspects of life, like having children, because the things that keep us well-rounded and the things that keep us aware of everything that's happening in the world and our lives as part of that world is to know that we always learn best from those people who have another perspective, who have experienced different things, who have another way of looking at the world. And that's exactly what I see in science. Science is moving that forward for us on a continual basis. And that's why all of those wonderful, inquisitive women who are out there, science is a wonderful place for you to be. And make sure you get the right support while you're doing that, so that your path forward can not only be easier and more comfortable for you, perhaps, but also give you the opportunity to really make the progress and to do the things for the world that you're meant to do.
Thank you, Rhonda. That was powerful, powerful words. Really, thank you very much. In your case, Alba, and narrowing into scientific areas, is geology and investigation around mineral resources fields where women stand out as remarkable leaders?
Well, the thing is, I work with industry a lot, but I'm settled in the academic environment. I work for the university doing projects linked to mines and mineral industries in general. So if you look to the academic side environment, I would say it may be one of the least sexist environment, in the sense of that of opportunity for men and for women. And so I don't have that particular feeling, especially if you compare with the mining industry itself. So it's not so long ago that there was no woman working in the mining industry, unless for those who were cleaning, the places. But there was no geologist or miners, or it's something that it's relatively new. So we have a lot of last growth to break here, and it's still a long way to go. I have struggled, not always, don't get me wrong, there is wonderful people in some of the companies. I have been appreciated for my knowledge, and I have been listened and followed, but not always has been like that. There is many cases where I have been challenged in a sense, and I have to show them, listen, I do know what I'm saying. And you cannot think that because I'm a woman, I don't know about, plumbing or infrastructures, or, I do have knowledge. I do carry rocks and I work with a hammer. And I know it's difficult picture for some people to see as small. You don't see me, but I'm very tiny. As, a short woman with a funny accent, working in your country around with a hammer in here and telling you are doing this wrong, this is the way to do it. And so it has been very, very challenging sometimes. And it's that you have to prove yourself, knowing that if you were a man, nobody would doubt that you are right with what you say, because your experience should be, your visitor's card. I have worked in all of these places. This is my experience. And I'm not even talking about being a doctor in geology. And, I really know what I'm talking about. So if you close the eyes, you will know I'm right. The problem is that you open the eyes and you see me. And then that is a challenge for some men particularly.
Yeah, sure. And around molecular biology, Temitope, what's the situation like? You think there are also women that stand out as remarkable leaders?
There is woman, so I'm pretty sure. So when I go to a mine and I see a woman in a high position, I can only imagine how many of these things she has faced, how difficult it was for her to get there. I'm sure it was more difficult than for his partner next to her. Maybe not, but there is a big chance that that is the case. So it is challenging, and I'm very glad every time that I see that there is, a woman that made it, and we are a lot who made it, and it's a worldwide situation. So obviously some countries are better than others in that sense, or some companies are more aware and promote, equality, gender equality, but it's still a challenge in many countries and in many companies.
For sure. Temitope, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you asked about the field of molecular biology. I think the sequencing of the whole human genome project actually blew up the field of molecular biology. Those advances made it more popular, and then, of course, attracted women into that field. It's a little bit different compared to maybe engineering, but I would still say that the gap is still there. Again, because of the limitations and peculiarities of the life of a woman, some of the certain sacrifices you have to make. In my case, when I wanted to start pursuing career in molecular biology, I actually had to rely on my parents for support. My parents always paid for my trainings, both within and outside the country, till I started getting funding because of the steps that I've taken. So yes, we have women representation in molecular biology. We had the 2020 Nobel Prize for CRISPR-Cas9 technology awarded to only women. But there was a time when we had Rosalind Franklin, and I remember that, I always feel pained when I talk about the structure of the DNA. When I teach my students, I refer to the fact that the crystallography pattern that she actually came up with was what was the key to understanding that the DNA was a double helix. And that was something critical to understanding the structural balance of the molecule. But she wasn't credited for it, no Nobel Prize. I look back at those times when people like that had to pay the sacrifice for someone like me to be able to stand and talk and speak to this field. So yes, imagine we're having the influence of more women in this field. And I also think one thing that's influencing that is not particularly because we want women, so to speak, in the field, is the fact that molecular biology cuts across every aspect of our life. Food, agriculture, medicine, think about it. We're going into precision medicine now. So as a result of the fact that the attention is on molecular biology, there's an influx of scientists into the field, but it doesn't still mean it's easy for women to actually settle in the field. So I would say the condition is a little bit better than more male-dominated areas like in geology, but we still have this real struggle where you have to prove yourself that you actually know this compared to a man that is in the same field.
Thank you, Temitope. Such an interesting also perspective from molecular biology. And as I said before during the presentation, Georgina is a postdoctoral researcher. And in this way, she's closer to academic spheres of debate. However, I know many of you also are close to academic influences on academic places and so on. Can a woman, Georgina, stand out easily in this environments? Is academia moving forward to new feminism currents?
So first, I just want to add something into what Alba was saying about the language. And I think everyone that doesn't use English as the first language, we all struggle with the same thing. We all have funny accents for English speakers, and we always think like, if I could just say these things in my language, I'm sure I would, people would think I'm smarter and would sound better. So I think that's a common challenge, and maybe for another discussion, right? Like languages in research, science, and everything. But so yeah, related to your question, Soraya, I think the challenge more in the field of academia, especially in my field, in like public health or like biomedical field, it's more related to where is the research focusing on. So for instance, for my PhD, I did research, I did the research in like nutrition and physiology. And I wanted to focus on women's health. So I was more interested in chronic diseases and how they develop and the social determinants around these diseases in women, because they have higher rates, for instance, from diabetes and stuff. And we know there's less evidence in, you know, how women or the symptoms of a woman when they have a stroke or stuff like that, right? I think there's the challenge on like doing research in women's health. I mean, most of the evidence that we currently have in the biomedical field is based on men research. So it's studies that had men mostly as participants. Therefore, there's so many, I mean, I'm a pharmacist, that's what I studied like for my bachelor's, and there's so many like drugs out on the market that were put out of the market just, you know, doing research on men. And not only that, like when you research on tissues and animals and stuff, usually are men, you know, male animals or whatever. So I think that it's very important for like the biomedical field to focus on women's health, not because it's more important or not, it's because there's lack of information, and we need to sometimes even like redo some of the research that have been done, but just on women. And not only that, like also focusing on specific diseases that are completely like not seen, like PCOS, or specific diseases that only women have to deal with. They are underfunded. People don't want to do research on that. Pharmaceuticals are not interested in that. So that, you know, it's just like a vicious circle that it's very difficult. So I feel like personally in my field, there's a lot of female researchers, like in the public health field, like there's always more females, but we still struggle to get funding for the research that we want to do. And we still struggle sometimes to publish. I'm also specialized in mixed method and qualitative methods. So I do take into account a lot of the social determinants. And I find it difficult sometimes for a lot of, well, like a specific sector of science, assuming or like understanding that social determinants are also part of the scientific field, and they are very important and we should consider them, especially the ones that are related to women. Some of the challenges that women go through related to health and access to health especially are completely different to men, and they are very determinant in how a disease can develop. So yeah, I think these aspects are like quite important to tackle, women's health in general.
Yeah, and also what you mentioned about fundings, I think it's really relevant also to take into account, because thanks to fundings, we can also move on, no? And develop and make more progress in scientific investigation and advancements and so on. So that's a great point that you stand out also on that. Thank you very much, Georgina. And last but not least, we have a few minutes left, and I would like if the people that are watching us want to make some questions. But I would love, first of all, to ask Vino. She mentioned that World Speech Day Woman is a United Nations Generation Equality Commitment Maker. I want, Vino, that you can tell us more about this, and how is this helping women and girls in science? Like, can you give us like a perspective, like what would be on future, and what can we expect, or even give us like a optimistic, optimistic view on this aspect? Thank you, Vino.
Sure. Thank you, Soraya. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so World Speech Day Women was approved as a Generation Equality Action Coalition Commitment Maker in 2021, under the theme of feminist movements and leadership. And our mandate is to provide advocacy. So as WSD, we have the resources to amplify the voices of amazing causes of many organizations and individuals striving to achieve gender equality. This includes women and girls in STEM. So with respect to STEM, the Generation Equality Action Coalition, amongst other goals, it aims to halve the gender gap in STEM graduates, global internet usage and ownership of mobile devices by 50% in 2026, and to increase funding for women-led startups, investment in tech innovations focusing on improving women and girls' lives, investment in research on gender bias in technology and innovation by 50% in 2026. At the UN General Assembly that was held in September 2022, the focus was on the Action Coalition on Technology and Innovation for Gender Equality. At this event, efforts were being made by global companies such as Ford and governments of Finland and Rwanda, where they demonstrated the strides that they are making towards achieving the goals of the Action Coalition. And if you would permit me, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to just share two examples. An example of a company or corporate is Koç Holdings, which is a 100-year-old Turkish group that owns a number of companies in the male-dominated automotive, banking, and energy sectors. And they have a presence in 150 countries with 100,000 employees. Koç had pledged to increase their in-house female workforce to 30% from 15% and to undertake 30 programs to reach 500,000 women in the technology sector by 2026. At the government level, the Rwandan Minister for ICT indicated that only 10% of female-led households have cell phones in Rwanda. And the goal is to ensure that this reaches 100% by 2026, as this will impact significantly in ensuring that women can access jobs, education, and finance, etc. As WSD Women, we want to provide advocacy, especially with respect to individuals and smaller organizations that are working hard at making this reality. And like I said before, this includes amplifying the voices of women and girls in STEM, and we have done that through by investing in media that is produced by men and women for the purpose of advancing women and girls. And one such, we do it through social impact videos, podcasts, events, and campaigns. And we've had women from Syria and Germany and elsewhere, Indonesia and so on, sharing their experiences and how they've risen in STEM, through our platforms. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Vino. That was really, really interesting, and your labor is like perfect in this world, like to advance into optimistic paths. And thank you for what you do. And I think I want to ask if someone else in the assistants want to ask some question, or even in between you girls want to appoint something, share something. You can take the word now.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention somebody that I know very much about because I happen to live in the country where she was very active. But you may or may not know that Angela Merkel, who was the Chancellor of Germany for many, many, many years until a couple of years ago, was originally in her training a physicist. A scientist was running the German government for years and years and years and years. And she was doing such a wonderful job of it. She was helping so many people, for example, a lot of the refugees who came to Germany. And when many people said, no, we can't do that, Angela Merkel was the one that said, yes, we can do that, and we will do that, and we did it here in Germany. So those of you ladies and girls who are in science, remember, science may not be your end point. You may go on to do wonderful things that don't have anything in particular to do with science, but just take that as a stepping board to maybe into something else that will also benefit the world in another way, like Mrs. Merkel did.
Thank you, Rhonda. That was a great example. Thank you very much. Someone else wants to say something? I would like to thank every one of you for taking place in today's afternoon. I think for me, it was a pleasure to hear all of you girls, and thank you, Fabiola. Thank you, Alvaro, also. Go on, Fabiola.
Yeah, if you don't mind, first of all, again, thank you so much. I'm usually on the other side. I'm usually the one that get interviewed. I'm usually the one that go to presentations like you all. and it was so inspiring, you know, because usually I don't hear to this kind of speeches. So be on the other side, I was really inspired by all of you. And my feeling currently is like it was not enough, to be honest. I want to get more of you. I'm sure different of you have the same feeling. So from organizations, I really would like to move, you know, to take it further, and you know, let's talk with the rest of the committee. But probably next year, hopefully, we could do something where we will see each other face to face, where we could do something bigger, where not only science, but maybe we can open as well for business, and you know, basically empower women that they are making of this planet a better planet, in so many different ways. Just by the way, for the ones that you don't know me, I work on wildlife conservation. I'm a veterinarian. So yes, all the challenges that you all are going through, I'm going through as well. So again, thank you very much for your work and for sharing, for inspiring new generations, and for inspiring as well the women that they are working currently on science, and as well to show that things are possible. And I think I feel almost like stronger suddenly, you know, I feel like less lonely, and I'm sure that most of you feel the same. So yeah, thank you very much for the work that you are doing and for the talk today.
Thank you very much, Mariola. It was also great hear now your experience. Thank you, girls. Thank you,
Thank
everyone
you
of
so
you.
much.
The pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
We'll see you soon again.
Yes, it was absolutely wonderful. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank
Yeah,
you for
thank
this
you so much.
opportunity.
Thank you very much.
I wonder if I could just add, Alvaro and I discussed airing this, publishing this this session on International Women's Day. World Speech Day Women has an event, a virtual event, and this will be included as well.
Thank you, Vino.
Great, thank you.
So take us conclude the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.